Hello, everybody. Yesterday, the state of Thuringen voted a new prime minister, or their parliament did. Our prime ministers are voted like the British prime minister, or at least that's the way it should look like. In reality, it is a bit more complicated. Our branches are more intertwined than they are in the English-speaking world. It is more that the parliament is picked by the executive branch than the executive branch, the prime minister, being just a representative of the parliament as it is in the United Kingdom. But anyway, our parliament in the state of Thuringen, that's the state parliament, elected a new prime minister yesterday, and his name is Thomas Kemmerich of the pseudo-libertarian party FDP. I'm quite libertarian myself, but I must admit that I never voted for the FDP in my entire life. And that is because this party never disappoints in disappointing the voters. They use libertarian talking points, as you would know them from the US American libertarian movement, but they never act on it. They never put pressure on it. They don't really believe it. They sometimes vote against it. It's very fuzzy. It's not like every party disappoints from time to time, but this party is an entire catastrophe. They always disappoint. So I never voted for them, even though I'm arguably a strongly libertarian mind. And this politician spent the entire day yesterday to distance himself from the AfD and also from the party SED. Now it's renamed to LINKE, but under the name SED, they were running the dictatorship in East Germany. Thuringen, the state of Thuringen, used to be part of that dictatorship. Now, Mr. Kemmerich stepped down because there was a storm of outrage, because he was also voted by the AfD, by MPs of the AfD. Not exclusively, he was also voted by his own party members and also by the CDU, but some votes also came from the AfD. And that was the reason why everybody was crying out, he's being voted by fascists, Nazis, and all of it. So he spent the entire day apologizing, but saying that he is a suffering politician. He is just answerable to the voters, to his conscience, and he will make libertarian policies and is not driven by, AfD on the one hand or any other party on the other. It's like he is presenting himself as the civilian, the center space, middle ground sort of person who is working with everybody, but not with real Nazis. That was his line. I think he even, particularly during that storm of outrage, he also said he would never cooperate with the AfD. But that was not enough. Already accepting the vote from the MPs of the AfD, although no further cooperation would be following from that, was too much. The discrimination against the AfD must be stronger. That's the overall held viewpoint in our media. And a lot of politicians from the FDP, the CDU, they had to roll back their initial stance and say that they also cannot have the situation how he is voted by fascists and so forth. He was actually the candidate for those who did not want to vote the SED prime minister. Mr. Bodo Ramelow was prime minister before that for the last 10 years, and he is of the party that ran the dictatorship that many citizens of that state still remember. The results of the last parliamentarian election of the 27th of October last year was such that the SED gained 29 seats, which is not enough to secure the position of a prime minister on its own. So they needed at least 45 votes. There are 90 seats, and 29 went to the SED. 8 seats went to the Social Democrats, the SPD. 5 seats went to the Green Party. Another 5 to the pseudo-libertarian FDP, and 22 seats went to the party AfD. During that storm of outrage, Angela Merkel sent a message from South Africa, where she gave a press conference. Listen up.
Die Wahl dieses Ministerpräsidenten war ein einzigartiger Vorgang, der mit einer Grundüberzeugung gebrochen hat für die CDU und auch für mich, nämlich, dass keine Mehrheiten mit Hilfe der AfD gewonnen werden sollen. Da dies absehbar war in der Konstellation, wie im dritten Wahlgang gewählt wurde, muss man sagen, dass dieser Vorgang unverzeihlich ist und deshalb auch das Ergebnis wieder rückgängig gemacht werden muss. Zumindest gilt für die CDU, dass die CDU sich nicht an einer Regierung unter dem gewählten Ministerpräsidenten beteiligen darf. Es war ein schlechter Tag für die Demokratie. Es war ein Tag, der mit den Werten und Überzeugungen der CDU gebrochen hat. Und es muss jetzt alles getan werden, damit deutlich wird, dass dies in keiner Weise mit dem, was die CDU denkt und tut, in Übereinstimmung gebracht werden kann. Daran wird in den nächsten Tagen zu arbeiten sein.
First of all, what the hell is she even doing in South Africa? Just to cram that into this story, you probably remember how it was a big sensation, state visits, how that was a big thing. Maggie Thatcher in Beijing opening the markets there, or helped changing the minds of the Chinese to open their economy a bit to the West. Or Ronald Reagan meeting Gorbachev in Moscow during a summit. They were big news stories. They were really interesting because they made a huge difference. Now we are faced with a political class, a jet set class, that is on permanent holiday and is flushing the news cycle with images from all over the planet. While they are lecturing us on how your average citizen has to reduce its CO2 emissions. I find this really absurd. It's comical beyond belief. And we have grown used to this. So anyway, she was in South Africa, where she does not belong. Somebody please give her a phone. And she lectured us on how unforgivable it is to accept the vote of a political group that you do not approve of. And what's really irritating is that the only options are re-election, which will probably yield a similar outcome, or that the SED prime minister is reconfirmed. So we have a representative of a party who actually ran a dictatorship. This party is given a prime ministership because they do not want a libertarian or pseudo-libertarian politician to be voted with the votes of conservatives. And they continue calling conservatives Nazis. I personally do not know the MPs of Thuringen. Personally, I can't really tell if they are all conservatives or some of them are still socialist, because it used to be a socialist country. I mean, they used to belong to the East German segment of the country, and I cannot really tell much about their specific points of view, but I assume it would not have been different if it were in Hesse or in North Rhine-Westphalia or any other state in the West. And it is not about how the AfD in this particular place behaves, but it is just an animosity against conservatives as such. This animosity was shown when the speaker of the SED came to congratulate the new prime minister. She stole the show from Nancy Pelosi for the drama queen of the day and threw the bunch of flowers on the floor. That's how it looked like. I will spare you all the details of the pressure on the prime minister until he stepped down, and the the stupid quotes. I'm just saying that he received phone calls that threatened him, that threatened his family. There were a number of cases of vandalism all across the countries against buildings of the pseudo-libertarian party. So there was a lot of pressure. I do not want to attack this man for stepping down. I'm just saying that the climate in this country is deteriorating by the day. And I fear that if the smallest corporation with what they call Nazis, which is your average person basically, if the smallest corporation is demonized like this, I do not see ourselves escaping a war. I mean, this is on the front of my mind all the time. I do not see how the left believes they can resolve conflicts by shutting people up. I think what they don't understand is that no matter how aggressive they are, people will not believe that 2 + 2 is 5. Or at least some people don't. There's this big misunderstanding. Some people are, apparently a lot, maybe even the majority of people are dumb or are malleable to the point where aggression and maybe torture and threats to the family or even killing members of the family, whatever, leads them to believe the craziest shit. Okay, some people cannot be bullied into believing shit. And another dimension of this entire discrimination, exclusion shit that the left is a specialist of, why they claim to fight exactly that, is that you lose all your friends. And you don't even want to be friends with them anymore. You lose the respect for basically almost everybody that you've ever known in your life. And I mean that personally. I must say that if somebody should ever come across this, who used to be a friend of mine but is now so hostile to Boris Johnson, the Brexiteers, and so forth, I'm losing it on them. I don't want to be their friends anymore. I have a former schoolmate who I shared the school bench with for many years, who is now working for the communist paper Taz. That was once a paper that had organized weapons for Honduras and militias in other places in Latin America. And, a former school friend of mine is now working for them. And I can't say how disappointed I am. I'm really disgusted. Another schoolmate of mine is now working for the Green Party and is an MP in a state parliament. I'm also disappointed. And I do not believe that any of these people would protect me when push came to shove. I do not believe that any of their lip services of how much they care about minorities and so forth is worth a cent if they are so cheap. And if democracy means so little to them, they most certainly will not protect any minority when push comes to shove. I'm done. I will continue my current series. I just think that, of course, current news come first, and I'll see you soon. Bye.